If you had a Wii, there's a really solid chance that you own or at least played Super Smash Bros. Brawl. This is the third entry in the Smash Bros. Series, and it took the beloved fighting game franchise and brought it onto the Wii, but it often feels like this is the most forgotten entry in the series. Super Smash Bros. Brawl released on March 9th, 2008 in North America, January 31st, 2008 in Japan, June 27th, 2008 in Europe, and June 26th, 2008 in Australia. Smash Bros. Is one of Nintendo's most successful franchises of all time, and how could it not be? Taking everyone's favorite Nintendo characters and setting them up to beat the snot out of each other is exactly what every 10-year-old dreams of. I know everyone out there at least once in their life took their toys and had a WWE style smackdown with them. This was the perfect way to bring that to life in a video game, and it all started on the N64. Smash 64 was a fan favorite game on the console, and it was a great introduction to the series. It was a great way to introduce the concept of Smash Bros to people across the world, but it really wasn't until Melee released in 2001 where the series reached new heights. Melee was the game for the GameCube. If you owned a GameCube, there was a very solid chance this game was in your library. The GameCube was not a huge success by any means, but Melee was the game that everyone got this console for. Well, that and Kirby Air Ride, I guess. Melee took everything that was great about the first game and added onto it with everything and more. New stages, new characters, new game modes. It was really a perfect sequel, and to this day is one of the most popular fighting games of all time. So after years of waiting, when Brawl finally released, the expectations were incredibly high. The development of Brawl began really shortly after the release of Smash Bros. Melee. It was directed by Masahiro Sakurai, and the game aimed to build on the success of the predecessors while introducing new characters and features. During development though, there were a lot of technical limitations. The Wii just wasn't strong enough to handle everything they wanted to slam into this game. Brawl was officially announced at E3 2006 with a planned release date of 2007, but due to all the limitations, the game ended up getting pushed back into 2008. I had not heard this news, so when I went on the initial release date before this game came out and tried to pick up my copy at GameStop, I was devastated the game got delayed. I ended up getting Mortal Kombat for the Wii instead to hold me over, and this game's gonna need its own video because it was wild. But despite the delay, the game released and it ended up getting pretty solid reviews. The anticipation for this game was real. People all over the world were waiting to get their hands on this game, especially with the character reveal trailers for Brawl, which were an incredible addition to the game and made each reveal wildly hype. The announcement of Snake from Metal Gear Solid and Sonic from Sonic the Hedgehog broke the internet. I remember going online and scouring the internet, looking as often as I could and being blown away by the reveals and leaks for this game.
We're getting a robot!
Even the trailers for this game were beautiful. They showcased the new characters and their abilities and generated so much hype for every new addition to the roster. The excitement for this game was real. You couldn't do anything without someone coming up to you and reminding you that Brawl was going to change gaming with these new characters. Once this game got into the hands of players, there were a lot of people who were super happy with this game, and a lot of people who were disappointed. Some people thought this game changed too much and wanted more elements from Melee to return to the series. Brawl brought a lot of changes and new features to the series, and I'll say it since apparently nobody else will, I really like this game.
Get him!
One of the biggest changes from Melee to Brawl was the change in the gameplay mechanics. Brawl was a much slower and floatier style of game compared to Melee's fast pace and crisp mechanics. This change was divisive among fans. Some appreciated the accessibility, and others hated the loss of Melee's precision and speed. In Melee, there was a load of exploits where you could chain together massive combos at lightning speed, and those were all removed in Brawl. Things like wave dashing in Melee, which took advantage of directional air dodging, are now removed, leading to this game feeling way less competitive than Melee did. The goal was to make this game as accessible to new and returning players as possible, and not to have an incredibly competitive game like its predecessor. I used to play competitive Melee at a very, very low level, and it is a nearly perfect game, and Brawl lost that competitive edge that Melee had. That's not to say this game didn't have a great competitive scene, but this game didn't feel like Melee. And for fans looking for a Melee 2, I can understand how it would be disappointing. Another major addition to slow down the gameplay was the tripping mechanic. Characters could randomly trip and fall when dashing, adding an element of unpredictability to the matches. And while I get this was intended to balance the game, the feature made it so frustrating to play in any sort of aggressive way. This was by far the most aggravating feature they added to this game, and it broke more Wiimotes and GameCube controllers than anything else. Tripping as an idea doesn't make sense to me. It just takes away the fluidity that this game desperately needed. Being able to chase after someone and perform a combo is something that is needed regardless of your skill level. I understand the goal was to slow down the game, but this was not the way to do it. Slowing down the gameplay does not make the gameplay worse, it just makes it longer, which is fine, but having something that completely stalls any momentum is a bad idea. Beyond the changes to the actual gameplay mechanics though, What made Brawl something special is all of the content that was added to this game. Final Smashes made their introduction to the series in this game. These are powerful moves that are unique to each character, and they're activated by breaking a smash ball that'll randomly appear on the stage. Some Final Smashes are a powerful one-hit move that does loads of damage and knockback like Link's and Zelda's, and others change the form of the character like Wario and Sonic, and others create tanks.
Why?
Final Smashes are iconic. They're stylish and they're fun additions to the gameplay that add on to the formula without changing all that much. Seeing a smash ball pop up on the battlefield and having to fight other people to get it made for a chaotic good time and added a load of variation to each round. Another new item that got added to the series with this game was assist trophies. These would summon various gaming icons to come assist you in battle. The assist trophies were a great way to add new characters to the game but not make them playable. Some were better than others. You had characters like Tingle from Legend of Zelda, Shadow the Hedgehog, and Waluigi. These are not as fun as Final Smashes, but they do add a lot of variation to each round. Getting to see a random character pop up and help you out in battle is something that I think is a great addition to this formula. And speaking of iconic characters, Brawl significantly expanded the roster, including fan favorite characters like Meta Knight, King DDD, and the wild additions of Sonic and Snake. This was the first time Nintendo included a non-Nintendo character, and this was a groundbreaking move. This opened the door for future third-party collaborations, which became a huge part of the series. Games like Smash 4 and Ultimate became a fighting game that showed off the history of gaming as opposed to just Nintendo characters, and it all started with this game. Including characters like Sonic just made sense, with the console wars being over at that point and the partnership forming between Sega and Nintendo with games like Mario and Sonic at the Olympics. It was great to see Sonic get added to the roster. The new characters felt refreshing, especially because games like Melee had a lot of characters that felt like clones of one another. Captain Falcon and Ganondorf shouldn't have the same moveset, and I get that they changed it later, but it didn't make sense. So having a wealth of new characters that played differently just added on to how fun this game was. Though this game added a lot of new characters, it also took away some fan favorites like Roy, Mewtwo, and Pichu. This was really disappointing for fans who had their favorite characters taken away, and it made it feel like these characters were forgotten. Even though these characters are gone, they were not forgotten. And the characters that took their places had some interesting designs. Characters like Pokemon Trainer made their debut in this game. He was essentially Red from the Pokemon series, which consisted of 3 Pokemon, Squirtle, Ivysaur, and Charizard, all in one. This was a really cool idea to have as a character. 3 characters in one made for some interesting variations for combos. Another new controversial character was Meta Knight, who was the single most broken character in any Smash Bros. Game ever. This is the tier list. You see how it ends here? Yeah, Meta Knight's up here. This character was just the best at everything, and since this game didn't get online updates like we're used to now, he was just the best character for the entire length of this game. You would think they would test this out to make sure there were no characters that were glaringly better than others, but I guess it fell out of their time constraints. Meta Knight was banned from competitive play in pretty much every single tournament because of how gross he was as a character. Beyond new characters, this game also offered a load of new stages. Some of the most iconic stages in Smash Bros. History, like Delfino Plaza, Norfair, and New Pork City, all were brought into this game. All of these maps brought a new experience to the game. They're a great snapshot into the source material and provided a huge hit of nostalgia whenever you play on a map for a game you've played.
Hey, I've been here before.
Another new addition to the stages was the Stage Builder. The Stage Builder allowed players to make their own stages, and even though the options were limited, this was loads of fun. Making a container where you can get stuck inside and getting a character up to 999% and watching them bounce all around like a bouncy ball was something that was so much fun and everybody did. This feature made it so you can play on whatever kind of stage you want. Making stages for you and your friends to play on was something that gave endless replayability. Another new feature that was added to Brawl that is overlooked in other games is the Masterpiece mode. This allowed you to play time trials of classic Nintendo games. You could sample titles like Super Mario Bros. And The Legend of Zelda, and it offered a nostalgic trip through Nintendo's history. Though these were time trials and only allowed you to play for a short time, it was a great way to try out these games for people who had never played them before. I played a couple games on here that I ended up purchasing on the Virtual Console, and I don't think I would have bought these games without trying them here first. These trials made it so players could experience the history of Nintendo. You get to see where the characters that are battling it out on stage came from, and it showed the stories that made these characters get onto the roster. This game also had its own story mode, and it's one of the best in the series. Subspace Emissary was a full-fledged single-player adventure mode. It built upon what was so good about Melee's adventure mode and just took it to 11. Unlike Melee's adventure mode though, this game had a unique storyline where characters teamed up to battle different threats. Having characters that never appeared in games before interacting and seeing how they would deal with one another led to a story mode that was both fun and entertaining. Watching Diddy Kong drag Fox into the woods to go play with him is a perfect example of seeing these characters interact and seeing how their personalities come into play. Subspace Emissary also included beautiful cutscenes and brought together characters in ways we've never seen before, providing fans a great experience that's memorable and entertaining. The story was decently simple, but engaging enough to want to play through it multiple times. This mode featured loads of levels where you had to get to the end and move through battling small enemies that are scattered throughout the level. At a certain point in the story, you'll have to fight various bosses which were iconic characters from all over the gaming world. All in all, this was a great way to unlock new characters and felt like a way more fleshed out version of adventure mode for Melee. It's the best story mode that we've gotten from a Smash game, and it really highlights how good this game was for single player content. Other games have felt like they were purely designed to be multiplayer, but Brawl brought loads of options for single player experiences as well. One of the best additions to the single player experience was the boss mode, which allowed you to refight bosses from Subspace in a gauntlet style challenge. This was a great challenge, and it was fun to be able to fight all the bosses from Subspace without having to go replay the entire game mode. This allowed you to get some more unlockables too, like Wolf and some trophies. Just like in Melee, trophies made a return, and they're just as great as ever. Trophies are literally trophies of characters from gaming history, and it gives a short, detailed description about these characters and the games they're from. I spent so much time collecting these trophies and reading about the characters to know more about them. These trophies could be collected in loads of different ways, and it was great to see one spawn in and you could run to collect it. Stickers were also added to the game and were a new collectible that were a lot simpler than trophies. Stickers were just stickers of beloved video game characters and other video game memorabilia. The sticker could be stuck onto a sticker sheet and displayed to flex to your friends that you have a virtual collection of stickers. I didn't care as much about stickers as I did about trophies, but they're still cool to have. But the best collectible in this game were CDs. CDs were added to the game, which added new fan favorite tracks to be selectable in the game selection. This was an incredible addition to the game. Being able to select the soundtrack for the stage you're playing on is great, and I'm glad they kept this feature in other entries. The best way to collect these things was to play the game, but if you're looking for trophies, the best way to collect those was to play Coin Launcher. This was a little mini game that replaced the Lotto feature from Melee, and it had you shooting coins at various enemies and trophies to collect them. This was way better than the Lotto feature, and it felt like a fun way to use the giant collection of coins you get by playing. Brawl was a big change to the series. A lot of fans loved the competitive nature of Melee and missed what the series used to be. This led to a couple of tech-savvy modders to put together a mod pack for this game called Project M. PM attempted to make Brawl more like a Melee 2, including elements like wave dashing and removing the tripping mechanic from the game. They also brought back fan-favorite characters like Mewtwo, and this mod quickly took over the competitive landscape. It became an extremely popular way to play this game. Project M really felt like Melee 2. It was a perfect combination of the new things that were added to Brawl and the old things that were missing from Melee. Brawl was ambitious with their new additions, exciting new features, and introduction of iconic characters. Whether you loved the changes added to this game or preferred the mechanics of Melee, there's no denying that Brawl left an undeniable mark on the Smash Bros. Series. The game paved the way for future entries, and even though it seems like the most forgotten entry in the series, it holds a special place in the heart of so many fans across the world. If you made it this far in the video, I just wanted to say thank you for watching. I hope that you and your family have an incredible rest of your day, and if you liked anything you saw here, please consider subscribing.